Hey guys, welcome to the Junto Podcast. Super excited today for our guest that we have. Not only a personal friend of mine, but also someone that I look up to in the arts community, Miss Alex Waddell Smith, who is the executive director for Delta Arts. So, how are we doing today, Alex?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, you're kind of one of those people that are doing a lot in the community, but not only that, people, I felt like they need to understand not only what Delta Arts is about, but what you do for Crittenden County. You know, right now we're in a very unique time, being in a pandemic, and, you know, I was thinking about this just preparing for the show, is how crucial and important is art right now in life in general.
Yeah. It's super important. I mean, just think of, especially when people are isolated, as we were all, especially back in March and April, what did people turn to?
Yeah.
They turned to, video. They turned to music. They turned to, all these artists came out, were making all these great experiences for people to enjoy in their home. And that's what connected people.
Wow.
And that's what the arts does. It connects people. It's a human level connection that no matter what is going on in the world, pandemic, whatever, that is a universal experience, so we can all share.
Oh man, so good, so deep. And we're going to talk a little bit about not only just art in general, but later we'll talk about the healing power of art. But before we get into those things, I just want to say we're so excited to have you here with us, and really this conversation I think is one that's needed. Before we get into those other topics, tell me a little bit about your journey. You know, I know that you did some teaching, and I know that you've done other things. How did Alex get so involved in art and the arts?
Well, I mean, honestly, from birth, I grew up in a household that my father painted and played piano. I actually grew up singing in church. We had a little duo. We traveled to churches around town.
Wow.
I sang from the age of, I was singing around the house probably from 4 or 5 years old. They started putting me on stage around 6. And they would always say I was like a little adult, even when I was 8 years old, if you can believe that. I sounded almost just the same, honestly.
How come I haven't heard you sing? That's the question. That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, these days it's usually karaoke. But it's even that. I haven't been able to do that in a while.
I'm a huge karaoke fan. So.
But, I mean, and all through school I would sing. So, you know, singing is how it started. As I said, my dad played piano. He was always the church pianist wherever we went.
Wow.
And so we would sometimes go to different churches based on if they needed piano, you know. And so that started for me. And, I mean, I hate when people say, like, oh, I was such a nerd. I will say I was naturally studious or curious. And my brother is 11 years older than me. It's a huge age difference.
Wow.
So he was going to college when I was going into kindergarten.
Yeah. And
I would read his literature books. I love literature, poetry. I would write my own poetry. So it was a house. We didn't do sports.
Wow.
Sports are unnatural to me.
Yeah.
We didn't get into any of that. It was all arts.
Wow.
And creating all the time. So, that was my start.
I love that, you know, because when we're talking about arts in general, you know, a lot of people's first reaction is to go with painting or crafting or something like that. But to hear your start and how you were exposed to that, and as I mentioned, we're going to get to a spiritual aspect of this, but to hear that and see that, and if you've ever watched this podcast or listened to any of our shows, you know that I always try to include a snippet of spirituality. I am a believer, a pastor, so I always try to tie whatever we're talking about into a spiritual perspective. And the fact that you said that that's where you began, it's a perfect segue for this. Well, I just want to give you one quick scripture here. Exodus 35 says, He has filled them with skill to do every sort of work by an engraver or by a designer or by an embroiderer in blue and purple scarlet yarns, and fine twilled linen, or by any weaver. And listen to this, by any sort of workman or skilled designer. So, just to see that it really is intertwined. Arts are really intertwined in every aspect of our lives, not just the physical, but in the spiritual too.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, think of the Sistine Chapel and the great, paintings of, the Renaissance period or church and art have always gone hand in hand. I mean, and again, that's just visual art.
Yeah.
Art is always reflective of the culture around it, whatever's going
Wow.
on. And so that's why, if you look at the context in art history, there's so many, religious paintings. That was all the realistic, religious paintings for centuries.
Wow.
I mean, that's what people painted because that's what people
Yeah.
connected the most to. And before there was photography, there was art.
You gave me the goosebumps, girl. I got the chills thinking about this. So it is. I think maybe today in our culture there is not an appreciation for art, and I think that's another reason why this conversation. And I won't say that there's not appreciation for art. What I meant to say is that there's not as much of an appreciation for the arts as I think there should be, and that's why I believe this conversation that we're having is so important. So awesome. So let's fast forward. You had an awesome upbringing, being exposed to the arts. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an adult, all the way up to what you're doing now with Delta Arts.
Well, I started with, back then we were Crittenton Arts Council. Still have the youth theater program, though, Crittenton Youth Theater. And
Right.
someone came to my third grade class with flyers for a play. And I was just immediately like, oh, wow, that was one thing I didn't know about. I knew music. I knew art.
Yeah.
I knew, reading, literature, poetry, but I didn't know theater. And so, coming from, a child without a lot of money,
Yeah.
and without a lot of resources, having a flyer, brought to my class, being able to experience a theater program in my backyard, it was hugely influential.
Wow.
So I started and I didn't stop. That was third grade, and I just kept auditioning and loving it all the way through high school. And I've always, I think ever since then, been in some way connected to Delta Arts. I taught, my background is in teaching.
Right.
I did teach high school for 6 years. But as soon as I left college, I was looking for a job.
Yeah.
And Janine Ernie, the executive director at the time, who our event's named after,
Yes.
she knew me from the theater, and I was,
Right.
good friends with her son. We're the same age. And so she said, well, we're looking for an AmeriCorps intern. And so I knew I wanted to teach, and I was going to go back to school, go to graduate school. So I worked there for a couple of years as an AmeriCorps intern. And then I went to the classroom. But every summer they would ask me to come back and actually help with Carnival, the event we're gearing up for
Right.
now. So I've been working on Carnival since 2006 in some way, every year. And when I decided that I wanted to come work at Delta Arts full time, I did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So your journey literally began
Yeah.
the third grader?
Yes.
I mean, and
did.
has not stopped. That's inspiring to us. And listen, if you're a student or somebody who is attracted to the arts, I want to encourage you guys. If dream big and don't give up your dream. But not only that, it's a very unique perspective to have an appreciation for the arts, and it's going to lead me into kind of the next topic here. You and I, as part of, as I mentioned, I'm on the board for Delta Arts currently, but we had a retreat last year, which was held at Le Bonheur. And, Le Bonheur, if you go there, it's really like a gallery almost,
It is.
And we had a little bit of time to talk about, and I think this is where art takes on a different form. It's not only the art itself, but it's how it impacts you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how art not only impacts us, but how it can actually heal us, not only from the position of the artist. I mean, golly, I'm thinking about painters, and I can only imagine how many people have been in a depressive state and decided, you know what, I'm gonna use this to. I mean, all the greats,
Yeah.
all the great things many of the great things that we see were inspired through adversity or through dark times. So let's talk a little bit about the healing power of arts and how that impacts us on a personal level.
Well, that's interesting what you said. It's not just, people think, I think of art being therapeutic from the artist side, because obviously, I think everyone agrees that art is expression.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's the way you get out your demon, so to speak, or, it's a
Yeah.
creative release. And,
Right.
and that's, I don't think any art is not meant to be interpreted or interacted with in some way, unless you're just, I don't know, like Emily Dickinson thought her poetry was going to get out there and she was just writing it for herself, but
And now-
someone else did find
Right.
it.
And we're still reading it to this day.
And can relate to it.
Right.
But it's interesting to say, to understand that it's from the person interacting and seeing the art, the viewer or
Yeah.
whoever experiences it, again, not just visual art, but theater, dance,
Absolutely.
that you have a connection to it. And I always want to steer away when people think that there has to be one interpretation. Like, in school we study poetry, and I think it sometimes deters students because they're like, oh, well, this is the way I'm supposed to view it.
If I don't see it the way they see it,
I don't
absolutely.
understand this. I don't know how many
Right.
times students would say, I don't understand this. And, all we talk about is the way it's been analyzed and studied over the years. Sometimes there's perspective from what the artist says, but honestly, most of the time, they want you to get your own interpretation
Wow.
from it and for it to impact you and for you to have a connection with it in your own way. And so
Yeah.
that's, I think, what's so therapeutic about it is, going back to what you said that art might not be appreciated as much now. I do agree that, our culture kind of goes more toward, like sports and things now that if you think, hundreds of years ago, artists were celebrities, and now,
That's right.
it's a little different, which they still are. I think people interact with art. They use art every day.
That's true.
They separate it. That art has to be this highbrow, elitist gallery thing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing at Delta Arts, that we believe that art is accessible and universal for everyone, and you should never feel intimidated or like you can't relate to it.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you said about art becoming personal to you. It's almost like a song that someone writes, and we may not know what the songwriter was writing about at the time, but we know that when we hear that chord or we hear that lyric and then it resonates with us, it's the same thing with all art, whether it's a painting or a sculpture or anything. And I think that's what makes art so cool. I think that's the power of art, not only power in a sense of how it impacts us, but we're talking about the healing power of art. And I can't help but think, we are in a pandemic. I mean, if we're being honest, we're living in history right now. I mean, can you imagine what's going to be said 20, 30 years, and when people are asking us who lived through it, what was it like? What did you really do?
And art reflects the context of the times. I mean, so there's going to be a lot of art that comes out of this period.
That's exactly right.
For sure. A lot of creative inspiration.
Not only that, but it makes me think about how much it's really needed right now. I'm thinking about my own life and how it is a release, and we live in such a fast-paced society, and I think that people are bombarded with images and stuff, but I want to encourage you, listen, if you haven't had a chance to view art or take a moment just to appreciate a good sculpture or a craft or a song, unplug and do that, unplug and do that, and I really believe that you will be moved by the healing, not only by the healing power, but just by the power of art. Because, again, I'm a spiritual guy. I believe that there's more to us than just our flesh. And art is one of those things. When I was initially asked to be on the board, I was like, this is something that I can get into. Like, this is something that I like. This is something that I can relate to. And not only that, but this is something that I want to promote. So, very cool. Very good stuff. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, there was a quote that I wanted to give. It's a quote I love, and I come back to. I've used it several times for Delta Arts things. So here's the quote by Pablo Picasso. Most people were familiar with Picasso, usually because his Cubist work with the disjointed faces and everything.
Right.
But art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life.
Ooh, wow.
And I mean, that is just a perfect, succinct way to say that it takes away some of the burden of everyday life and makes something beautiful out of it. And if for anybody who's ever, just off the top of my head, a real experience, most people know you had your heart broken or been dumped or broken up, and you have that song you listen to over and over again, and you just sob, and you always think of that song, you always think of that. That is a connection. That is a human connection, and there's no other way. I don't think that you could really deal with something like it's something, and that's just a small example. That's not so serious, but that's just the way that people find to make sense of things.
Yeah.
through art.
Good stuff. Hope you're getting something out of this podcast, guys. We're really excited. And that brings me to this right here. Let's talk a little bit about Delta Arts, and I know we're going to talk about Carnival, but tell me about some of the events that Delta Arts does throughout the year, and then we're going to talk about the big event that's coming up. Carnival is coming up September 12th. We're going to talk about how that's going to be a little bit different this year, what they can expect, and how they can, more importantly, be involved.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you what Delta Arts looks like on a kind of more normal year, so to speak. This year, just as everybody's doing, we're working to reinvent and figure out how we can continue to serve the community and the schools in this unique situation we're all in. And so we're working on that, moving a lot more toward some virtual programming and finding a way to safely offer programs. So it's always difficult to just in a nutshell explain what we do because we do everything. Arts education. I mean, we're multidisciplinary, so theater, visual art, dance, music, all of it. We touch on all of it. As an arts education organization, we want to start providing access and instilling a lifelong passion for the arts from early childhood. One of our programs we're most proud of, we are an affiliate site for the national program Wolf Trap Early Education through the Arts. And Wolf Trap, our site is called Delta Wolf Trap, and it's for early childhood. It's really birth through second grade. We mainly do kindergarten through second grade. And it's a way for the performing arts, for students to engage through literacy and the performing arts. And so we train, Wolf Trap helps a little bit. We train teaching artists who are professional artists, so professional singers, dancers, musicians, and they train on working with a classroom teacher to provide learning experiences for students. And we call that a classroom residency.
That's huge.
So the residency could be a full Wolf Trap residency is 16 visits. In order to reach more students and have more impact, we've been doing more of the 1 week residency model where it's 5 days in a classroom, depending on the grade level, 30 minutes to an hour at a time. And it provides professional development for the classroom teacher. They learn and pick up on techniques, ways to deliver instruction and reading and books through a professional artist's arsenal, what they have to offer. So it's an amazing program. It's one of our favorites, and we've been doing that for years and years. We love Wolf Trap. And so those are for our little bitties. And then really K-12, although we do mainly K-6, that's usually our focus. We also do aesthetic education. And aesthetic education, it's based on the Lincoln Center Institute New York's philosophy, their model, created by a teacher, for teachers. It provides new ways of teaching through the arts. So that's how it was started. The story is always told that so students would be bussed into these. I mean, Lincoln Center Institute's one of the most
prestigious,
well-renowned performing arts centers in the world in New York City. And so all these students would get bussed in, and they'd get to these performances, and they weren't paying attention, which is terrible, I know, on its own. But the Lincoln Center actually came to this lady, Maxine Green, and she, at that time, I think, was retired from the Teachers College, and asked her to work with teaching artists to develop a system, a teaching method to engage students to view live performances. So that when you go to see a play,
that's it.
You already, speaking of connection, you have a connection.
That's right.
So if you, just to use kind of a more real world example, if you're walking into a theater to see a movie and you have know nothing about it,
never seen a trailer,
actors, nothing,
nobody,
it's going to be harder to pick up.
That's exactly right.
But if you've, like many of us do, read reviews,
that's it.
You're looking for certain things. So teaching artists, we train them to go into the classroom. They find what we call point of entry in that work of art. Could be an exhibit, could be dance performance, could be theater, and they work with the students to engage with that work of art, and they create art also based on how the artist created the art. So it's a smaller scale version, and when they get there, we call it the aha moment, where they'll go, I saw that, or I did that.
Yeah.
I made that. That dancer, how she moves with the scarf, we did that.
Unreal.
So aesthetic education is really unique. There aren't a lot of sites that still do it. Lincoln Center used to have this national affiliate network like Wolf Trap does.
Yeah.
They stopped doing that several years ago. So, I mean, a lot of the sites have dropped off, but it's so powerful. I think we're one of the few agencies in the state that still offer
That is
it.
Crazy.
And it is so powerful. And to see kids when they go see that performance, a lot of our kids we take them to the Cannon Center.
Yeah.
I mean, there are adults here who've never had that experience.
That's right.
It's pretty amazing. So I could go on and on about that, but that's one of our main programs.
Awesome,
it's harder to explain to people what a classroom residency is, what a teaching artist is.
Right.
And also, by the way, the aesthetic education model is multidisciplinary. It's not just performing arts; it includes visual art.
Very cool.
We curate art exhibits. We have a gallery of our own at the Shetley Center. We're very proud of.
Very cool.
Yeah, when you get a chance to stop by the Delta Art Shetley Center, it's amazing. It's all local artists, regional artists. And so we also work with ASU Mid-South, and we curate 3 exhibits a year for them in partnership.
Heather and I attended the last one, so that was awesome.
And so again, we're looking at this year how to do everything safely and and still provide that experience. And one of our favorite programs is with Mid-South Health Systems. Speaking of therapy, it's an art therapy program.
Really?
And so Art and Soul is an exhibit we mount every year that's the artwork created through art therapy.
Gotcha.
And those artist statements, because these are adult mental health clients.
That's right.
And their art statement. And so it's so powerful.
Wow.
And this last year we had to... the pandemic was starting just as we had the opening, but we still released everything online. And that's the only exhibit out of the year that 100% goes to the artists. They get every bit of it.
Unbelievable.
So we want to continue doing that. We also work with the schools, West Memphis School District. We do student exhibits for them in our space.
Yeah.
So the students get a real gallery experience for their art. It's so cool. Parents come.
Yes.
Instead of wine and cheese, we have cupcakes and lemonade.
There you go.
And the Shetley is filled. This year, again, will have to probably be a little different. But so that's an amazing experience. And those are just a few of our programs.
Yeah.
Obviously, Critany Theater is the one most people are aware of, how I got my start.
I've had my kids
yes,
in a couple
y'all
plays.
have.
That's
absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Y'all had to deal with me as the CY2 coordinator and my many demands. But it's a really cool program, too, that not only, again, as it did for me, it provides that access and that opportunity for students. It gets kids together from all these different schools.
Yeah.
Where else does that happen?
I know.
And so, I grew up, because of that theater program, knowing kids who were from Hughes and went to Lee's Academy or to Hughes School District, who went to West Memphis Christian. I mean, it brings all these kids together from all these different backgrounds and experiences, and that's huge. And so that's a K through 12 program we're very proud of. Has been our longest running program.
And it's good. The quality of what is done is just unreal. And I can tell you behind the scenes what goes on to make those things
and
happen.
The parents are
it's
so
unbelievable.
Involved. I mean, and that's a program that's unique that parents and students can be involved. That parents and their kids are involved.
Yeah.
And as a parent's perspective, and I'm speaking for you.
Sure.
Stop me if I'm wrong, but
no.
I've heard parents they've shared with me that. It's all this work and stress, but then when you see, I created that prop.
Man,
my child was at home helping me paint that, and it's up there on stage, and to see it used.
That was me. Like I helped out last year with a couple of the props, and I'd see it, and I'd take pride myself going, I helped on that
and
thing right there, and Heather did.
I glued the stuff on that headband. Look how good it looks.
That's exactly right.
And to see where it goes and how it's used.
That's it.
Again, it's very much a connecting program. It's huge.
Well, and to see the confidence that is built in the students that participate. I mean, you don't have to have a lead role to feel accomplished in that type of play, because it really is. Everybody has an opportunity to be involved, and it's just so fun. It was fun for me. I know they had fun. My kids did. So.
And if one child is not there. That one whole. Every role is important.
That's right.
Every the ensemble. That's the other thing. Not to go too deeply into the philosophy side of it, but for aesthetic education, we follow the capacities for imaginative. Used to be learning. I think Lincoln Center has changed it to thinking.
Okay.
But same. I mean, thinking leads to learning. Obviously, exhibiting empathy is one of the capacities that's one that we work so hard.
That's
to
huge.
always keep at the center of what we do, because art teaches people to understand other people. We all are connected through that,
That's right.
that human experience. We're all humans. We all have souls.
That's it.
We all have wants, needs, desires.
That's
we all, and that's where, no matter what you believe or background, anything that the arts does. And so
That's
empathy, it builds, and that's so important, I think, right now.
Oh man, especially right now.
Yes.
Very cool. I love all that, and I can attest that that's how I feel about art too. And that brings us to our big thing that we got coming up. That's Carnival, and I know that this year's going to look a little bit different. Let's just spend a couple of minutes talking about Carnival, not only what it represents, but how it's going to look a little different this year, and how, more importantly, people can get involved.
Yes, that's a great question. Well, again, going back to the pandemic, of course, we had to change up Carnival this year. And so we're excited to offer it in a new way. It's a 34-year-old event.
Wow, that's huge.
I mean, I'm 37, so that's
Yeah,
been around a long time.
Yeah.
We're calling it this year the Janine Ernie Carnival No-Go Gala.
Yeah.
Because we are encouraging people, stay at home and watch. It's an all virtual event.
Right.
So it was a live auction for 3 nights. Now it's a 1-night event that the core of the event is what you get to watch it's a lip sync battle.
Yeah.
So these are community celebrities, they're talent.
It's going to be awesome.
Who are all lip syncing. They're working with one of our teaching artists, the choreographer, Emma Crystal, who's awesome. Miss Emma,
Yeah.
she directs for us for CYT. And so they are going to perform, but we also have little things throughout. We have hosts who are going to come on air with and interview some of the lip sync contestants,
Right.
and just introduce. And then we have some testimonial videos from some CYT actors and participants. So you'll get to see all kinds of fun stuff throughout the night on September 12th, Saturday, September 12th. Anyone can view it, but we are selling tickets. And for a ticket, you get a meal and wine. We have different levels. If you want to have a watch party, you want to feed the family, we have different levels for that. And the wine grows and the packaging and the food grows. But Melissa Williams of Melissa's Catering is providing that. You pick it up the day of.
So cool.
You buy the tickets online. You pick up your food the day of at the Shetley from 3 to 5. You go home, tune in.
Yeah.
And you'll see an amazing event.
It's a win-win-win. Just if you had to pay for the ticket just to see the karaoke or the lip sync event, that would be worth it itself.
But we're talking costumes.
Yeah.
And I can tell y'all the music is, they've picked some really fun songs.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that, and people, and I left this part out, but there's an online auction tying us into what Carnival was for many years. So anyone can access the auction, but if you buy a ticket, you get early access. It'll open up several days early, and you can go in and get all your bids in on your favorite items.
Yeah.
It's all online.
So perfect.
And
so
the lip sync battle contestants are competing for trophies.
Awesome.
And the audience, the viewers, you will vote for your favorite contestants, maybe more than one, by donating to Delta Arts, and you can text and go onto the website.
That's it. So cool. I mean, it's a win all the way around. Like I said, if you just had to get tickets just for the lip sync battle, that alone would be worth it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're getting catered food and some wine on top of that is just a bonus. So we want to encourage you guys. Arts is one of those things where, we really rely on the support of the people.
Right.
And so we want to encourage you guys not only to participate in this event, we're asking you, please, if you haven't already gotten your tickets to the No-Go Gala, that you go ahead and do that now, but also don't just stop there. Support the arts throughout the year. I know things are different right now, and we're in a pandemic, but make an opportunity to attend some of the art exhibits at ASU Mid-South when those are available again. Get invested in art. If you're a parent, I want to encourage you, man, begin to do art with your children. Either that, if you're not artsy, get them involved with someone. Awesome programs that are available right through Delta Arts. So get involved.
And you can go to our website, deltaarts.org, and you can sign up for our mailing list. And so we'll send out, if your child's interested in, CYT, wants to get involved in the theater program, you can sign up and we'll send out audition notifications.
So
and
cool.
you'll know, you can keep track of when everything's coming up.
That's it. Alex, thank you so
Thank
much
you so
for being
much.
here. I had
This
a
has been
blast.
really
I learned. You gave me goosebumps with not only all the programs that we're talking about, but just your passion for art. It really is inspiring and it's contagious. And we hope that you guys were able to feel the same thing we felt. Get involved with Delta Arts. You guys have a great day.
Bye.